Saros is a game built atop of strong foundations set by Returnal. To that end, the similarities between the two games are numerous and immediately apparent. Saros' premise and the way that it's realized on screen are strikingly familiar, and it often sounds, looks, and plays just like its predecessor, but those similarities are just what's on the surface. Like the planet Carcosa itself, once you dig a little deeper, Saros feels very different and demands to be taken on its own terms. As a protagonist, Arjun Devraj establishes himself as a contrast to Celine from the very outset. Although Arjun has his wits about him, his inclination isn't to learn about and understand Carcosa, it is to struggle against it, to fight it, sometimes with a determination that teeters on recklessness. Arjun isn't on a mission of exploration and discovery, not of Carcosa and, at least initially, not of himself. He knows who he is and why he's there. His objective is to search and rescue.
I'll find them and make sure everyone's safe.
The 3 hours I played the game, naturally, didn't delve too deep into the various mysteries Saros lays the groundwork for, using flashes of striking imagery that no doubt are symbolic of things yet to be revealed. But one thing stands out as a signpost clearer than anything else: the voice of a woman beckoning him.
You are so close now.
She's waiting for him, and she is on Carcosa. It's unclear how he knows this, but he is certain of it. Again, the finer details of the narrative will become apparent deeper into the game, but Saros did paint enough broad strokes to anchor me to Arjun, Carcosa, and the objective. The necessary pieces to put together a small part of the puzzle are offered immediately. Arjun is an enforcer. He works for a mega corporation called Soltari. A colony was established on Carcosa to extract a compound called leucinite, which is worth trillions. The colony, mining crews, and emergency investigation unit dispatched to Carcosa have gone missing. Members of his team are also missing in action, and the woman is there. Even early on, the hooks and the performances are compelling enough to feel like Saros is a game that has narrative ambitions, alongside its focus on intense gameplay. While Celine was on Atropos on her own, Arjun is joined by the surviving members of his team, Echelon 4. They have hunkered down in a place called the Passage, which is a base of operations that houses a strange pool of swirling red energy that Arjun emerges from after he is killed, along with a few other things. Each member of Echelon 4 is grappling with the mysteries of Carcosa in different ways, and is motivated by different objectives. Arjun is a complicated man, and based on initial cutscenes and conversations, actor Rahul Kohli looks poised to show those complexities in a memorable way. Arjun often states that his motivations and his primary concerns are to complete the mission, find the missing colony, and help other people. He projects his altruism, but on a couple of occasions, it feels like he's trying to convince himself of this, and more selfish motivations slip through the facade. That's not to say he's a bad person or is scheming. It's more of an indication that, like others, he may be more vulnerable than even he realizes. And perhaps the mysterious woman he's searching for could be influencing his decisions more than he lets on. What sticks out prominently is the idea of duality, which runs through every part of Saros. Like Arjun, there's more to others on Carcosa too. Stack, for example, comes off as a calming voice, someone who understands the gravity of the situation and knows that he needs to be the voice of reason. And yet, there are moments when he insists that he needs to be out there, facing the danger, and he obsesses over this in a way that is almost like he's not totally in control of himself.
I came here for so much more.
That happens a lot. Characters are cogent in one moment and then a little off in another. In more extreme cases, they're clearly possessed by rage and fanaticism that usually leads back to the same thing: the sun, an ever-present, grossly incandescent entity that impacts Carcosa and the people on it in severe ways. It certainly seems like there are layers to peel back, and what's underneath might not be something we, or Arjun, likes. Arjun's first assignment is to follow a Soltari signal, and after stepping out into Carcosa and facing off against bat-like critters and stationary turrets firing balls of blue energy at me, I felt like I was picking up where I left Returnal, staying agile to ensure I was always a moving target, firing my weapons at enemies to chip away at their health, and carefully weaving between dozens of projectiles and behind obstacles to stay safe. That worked well for the most part, but enemies started aggressively pursuing me in a way that didn't happen until the later stages of Returnal. The salvos of projectiles go from casually avoidable to overwhelmingly omnipresent. Wherever I pointed my camera, there were things flying towards me, to the point where it started to feel like Saros was making demands of me that I couldn't meet. This was Saros' way of telling me that threading the needle to stay alive won't work for long. Housemarque wants players to throw themselves at the danger instead of trying to get around it. By pressing R1, Arjun forms a bubble around himself that absorbs all blue projectiles that come into contact with it. There's a bar representing power that depletes while doing so, but by absorbing projectiles, this can also be refilled when empty. Aggression is the name of Saros' game, and before long I was sprinting through waves of projectiles instead of trying to dodge them. In my skirmishes I began running directly at enemies to deliver brutal punches, which made short work of the annoying turrets that like to pepper me from the outskirts of the battlefield. The more beast-like enemies mixed projectiles with up-close swipes, and the shield was an excellent way of helping me get out of pressured situations and re-establish my footing. Housemarque is calling this new flavour of its combat Bullet Ballet, which gives it more elegance than perhaps it represents, at least in the way I was playing. I certainly didn't feel like I was doing ballet, I felt like I was becoming a wrecking ball. Saros' gameplay also has the same tendons connecting its various parts that Returnal used to make the loop feel cohesive and satisfyingly circular. The active reload, the adrenaline mechanic, dashes and jumps, and power weapons that can be relied on to dish out damage in various ways. These in-between firing guns actions that are done almost subconsciously quietly build momentum that, when utilized correctly, feels like it embodies Arjun's determination. Despite having largely the same toolset, Celine always felt like she was on the back foot and then emerged victorious by beating the odds. Arjun, by comparison, can be played with an aggression that feels more empowering. Saros is another very challenging Housemarque game, but there have been some changes made to make sure that even if you bite the dust, the time you spend on one of its roguelite runs is still fruitful. By interfacing with the primary, basically an overbearing robot middle manager that's constantly monitoring your time on task, Arjun can spend Lucenite gathered during a run to unlock permanent upgrades that not only change the way the game is played, but also give the player a degree of agency in how Arjun develops. This is a big change in Housemarque's design, but it doesn't undermine the challenge of the game. Some upgrades make a significant difference, like Second Chance, which, as the name implies, brings Arjun back for one more chance when he dies. Others are smaller, but remain meaningful by boosting attributes such as armor integrity, health, shield capacity, the amount of Lucenite you gather, and so on. I didn't use it, but Housemarque has previously said that players will also be able to customize the gameplay experience to their liking by using modifiers. Options such as making perfect reloads easier, increasing Lucenite collection radius, and preventing the shield from consuming power when used will no doubt sound appealing to those having a little trouble with the game. However, there is a trade-off system to counterbalance these advantages. If you want more Lucenite, you may have to reduce the amount that you keep when you're killed. The shield being less strict about usage could mean you do less damage to enemies, and so on. This is a very smart extension of the risk versus reward system from Returnal, which also makes its return with similar implementation. In Returnal, it was mainly oriented around picking up obolites and weapons, some of which had a risk of causing a suit malfunction. Saros has a similar approach for weapons, which have a downside you need to factor in alongside any improvements they may offer. The big gameplay twist comes from the aforementioned sun, more specifically the eclipse. The menacing celestial body feels like an ever-present watcher, like the Eye of Sauron, but constantly bearing down on you. During each run, Arjun will inevitably encounter a point where progress is halted, and the only way forward is to summon the eclipse. By doing so, Carcosa is enveloped in a malevolent energy that shifts the tone of the game drastically.
Jay, I think I messed up.
From that point on, the world is corrupted, and it looks as if it has been plunged into the depths of hell. Everything looks like it's been lit on fire. Eldritch creatures and alien flora suddenly appear, and pools of boiling acid pop up. Carcosa is likely in part a reference to the fictional Lost City from Robert W. Chambers' The King in Yellow, a collection of weird fiction stories that also drew inspiration from Ambrose Bierce's An Inhabitant of Carcosa. It is presented as a place that almost exists in its own hellish pocket of time and space. A planet with twin moons that is constantly changing and growing. In the Cthulhu mythos, it's home to Hastur the Unspeakable, a being that aims to consume life until it is able to ascend to the rank of an elder god. While the idea of a growing and shifting planet is the perfect touchstone for a game in which each run features a different configuration of landmasses, Saros' Eclipse is where Housemarque's take on Carcosa channels its inspirations most. This is when the planet takes on an almost Lovecraftian identity. The dangerous creatures that inhabit it are imbued with a corrupted energy that can no longer be shielded against. Instead, taking damage reduces Arjun's maximum armor, which can only be restored by using power weapons. But in the thick of battle, you may not even get the chance. The Eclipse is transformative enough to the gameplay that it became something I dreaded doing. During that phase of a run, I felt like I, and by extension Arjun, had lost that sense of empowerment and was pushed onto the back foot. Housemarque has never been a slouch when it comes to presentation, but Saros is a big leap forward. What really leaves a mark is the atmosphere. Returnal's atmosphere is one of isolation, feeling alone and constantly facing the unfamiliar, but there are quiet, somber moments to be found too. I did not find that in Saros. Everything in Carcosa sucks when the eclipse happens. The entire time I was playing Saros under the eclipse, dramatic shift into a fiery color palette instilled a discomfort in me that felt fever-like. From visuals to sound design, much of which involves snarling from unseen monsters lurking somewhere nearby, or the faint wails and groans of someone having a much worse time than me, it all comes together in a way that truly makes the planet bristle with a hostile energy. Similarly, the way the architecture changes had me stopping and just looking around. Craggy cliffs surrounding deep red land that looks like it could be made of blood and sinew, barren trees that look brittle enough that they'd crumble if touched, towering cathedral-like structures as majestic as they are unsettling, cold buildings made of dense slabs of stone and metal mathematically layered and placed to create an unnerving kind of symmetry. At times I felt like I was guiding Arjun through Hades, other times through something out of Dune. Either way, it comes together to be truly arresting. But the same can be said of Returnal, which felt to me, at least in part, like Housemarque's nod to Alex Garland's Annihilation. It's another instance that shows Saros is undoubtedly walking the same path as its predecessor. For some, the similarities may temper their excitement, but having played a few hours, it has become clear to me that, just like Celine and Arjun, Housemarque is approaching the familiar armed with knowledge, experience and tools that it hopes it can use to push further into the unknown.